Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Well, hello and good day to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. A special, interesting topic today that many people are interested in: sleep. We're going to be talking about sleep smarts, exploring the genetic and environmental factors behind high quality rest. And I have the absolute delight and pleasure of welcoming back a friend of mine whom I have had the honor of interviewing in a couple of podcasts. I first got to interview Roudy Nassif, who happens to be founder and CEO of VivaRays. And I interviewed him back in November, at the end of November of 2023, where we learned about his origin story. We learned about light in the circadian rhythm and about VivaRays, how they aid in light exposure and how they help you to function better. Then I had him back to interview him again in a podcast that came out in March of this year, 2024, where we dove into how light affects women's health and hormones. Tonight, we've got him live, being able to answer some questions. We're going to be diving into specifically how light affects our sleep, how VivaRays can help us biohack ourselves into better sleep. And we're going to be talking about genes. How does that work into it? Your DNA reports, what you find in your DNA 360, what to look for, and the types of things that can affect how well you sleep and how we can biohack that. So first of all, welcome, Roudy. Such a pleasure. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here present with you for the third time. Doing wonderful. As I said, there was like an awesome hurricane and it was so beautiful to watch, and gladly it passed next to us. So all good now.
Well, that's wonderful. By the way, for all of you, if you are new to our webinars, if you're new to the DNA Company, my name is Dr. Lara Varden. I'm an in-house clinician here at the DNA Company. I'm also Dean of DNA University, and we are so happy to have you here. And Roudy, I would like if you could please give us a little introduction about who you are, what you do. I already gave a little hint. So can you please give a little introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to keep it short because I've already shared my full story previously. But I like to keep it short. I truly believe that we as human beings, we deserve to live in an environment that makes us thrive. And we deserve to wake up every single morning feeling vibrant, vital, and vivacious. We all deserve to get an absolutely amazing restful night's sleep to heal and rejuvenate at night. And sadly, in today's world, you and I and most of us, we are living in physical environments that are not like unto nature. They don't have the balance and the symmetry of nature. And most of us today, we're spending 12 to 16 hours indoors under artificial lighting. And this artificial light is silently sapping the life force out of us. And what I'd like to do is I like to help people to view light from a whole new lens, because when we speak about light, most of us think about it as something physical, as something that makes vision possible. It's a light bulb that we turn on and off, and we take it for granted. But light is information. And it's this information, our brain and our nervous system, that's constantly processing from the environment to tell our bodies whether we need to be awake, alert, energized, doing amazing work and creative jobs, or whether we need to be asleep, resting, rejuvenating, and healing. Even if you break down the word information and you look at it as information, the light that is entering our eyes is literally forming who we are. It's providing the energy to manufacture all of the different neurotransmitters and hormones that control the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act. Hormones like dopamine, serotonin, melatonin, beta endorphins, etc., are actually manufactured through light energy. So hopefully by the end of this webinar today, we start viewing light not only as something that makes vision possible, but as the most powerful force that shapes and molds every aspect of our life. And it's literally the signaling from Mother Nature that tells our bodies and our cells when to do what and how to do it and how well to do it.
That's beautiful. And it is so important. And I love the passion that you have when it comes to light, the significance of light. I do recommend, anyone here, if you haven't heard that first episode the podcast that I had with Roudy last November, it is wonderful to hear his backstory and how he got into all that. Really amazing. And we're going to be unpacking that, as far as how light affects you, the different neurotransmitters and hormones that he was mentioning, serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, the importance of that, the genes that are related to that. We are going to be talking about that tonight. So I would like to have just a brief overview of your understanding of light as far as what's going on in the evening. I mean, really, why is it important for us to have, a light, the changes in the frequencies and the colors of light, and what is going on? Why is this so important now?
Yes, absolutely. And since this whole webinar is about sleep, so I'm gonna this topic is, it could go anywhere because there's no one area in our biology that light doesn't touch and impact. But since we're talking about sleep, getting a great night's sleep consistently and waking up feeling refreshed and energized doesn't happen by chance. There was a time in my life when I really struggled with sleep. And I've always thought to myself, oh my God, like, what's going on? How can I figure this out? And it was puzzling my mind. But the truth is that the science of sleep is controlled by a universal force called the circadian force. Okay. And circadian comes from circa and dia, which means approximately a day or 24 hours. So it's referring to this like 24-hour rhythm that every biological species on Earth experience: animals, plants, humans. And it's because we all experience this unescapable daily change in our environment. The day becomes night and the night turns into day. And fascinating enough, plants have a mechanism where they can direct their leaves toward the sun during the day, and they follow the movement of the sun so that they can harness that photonic energy. And they drop their leaves down at night when the sun is down for conservation of energy and for rest. So every biological species on Earth is wired to follow that light and dark cycles. And for us as humans, in order to adapt to that daily change, we developed an internal clock that sits in the center of the brain. And it literally determines when we go to sleep, when we wake up, and the quality of our sleep, how well we will sleep, and how rested we feel when we wake up. Now, aside of that, this clock also controls our energy level, our metabolic system, our detoxification system, and so many other things. And its job is to time all these different functions to an optimal time of the day or the night within that 24-hour cycle. Because remember, like, we can't be doing everything at the same time. Our body can't be performing all these different tasks at the same time. There's a time and place for everything. And when the body gets the right signaling to do the right thing at the right time, things flow effortlessly. However, when the body is confused, when it's actually 7 p.m. at night and the body is receiving that signal from a light bulb telling it that it's 12 noon, it gets the wrong signal at the wrong time and it starts secreting the wrong hormones, leading to chaos in the body. So when we speak about chaos, what's the opposite of chaos? The opposite of chaos is coherence. And I like to view all this mechanism as like a coherence creation mechanism. This clock creates structure and coherent communication between the billions of our cells. So these cells finally could work in unison and produce a harmonious symphony in the body that we call health and wellness. Okay, so if we look at it, it's beautiful. It's like music. Like health and wellness is such an inherent state. It's natural to us. It's the state that we are designed to thrive in. But all we need to do is to bring ourselves back to balance and to extend the balance of nature into our environments so that we can reattune ourselves. So I like to bring like a nice analogy so people could visualize it. If you think, again, music, in a musical symphony, you have this in an orchestra with many musicians. In order for them to produce beautiful and harmonious music, they need to be guided by a conductor who's reading the musical notes and instructing those musicians on what to do. Now, think about it in our body. This conductor is this master clock that we just spoken about. And it's reading those musical notes coming from sunlight and darkness. And it's responsible for telling all the different musicians, like the organs, the brain, the liver, the pancreas, and all the different cells in our body, what to do and when to do what. Okay?
It's really interesting because every cell in the body and each of our organs have set circadian rhythms. I mean, it actually, you were saying precisely in the brain, there's actually a section of the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that lies at the center of the body's master clock. This gets input directly from light sensors in the eyes and keeping the rest of the body on schedule. Dr. Sachin Panda actually discovered he's from the Salk Institute, and he discovered how these light sensors work, as well as how cellular timekeepers in other parts of the body function. He actually wrote a brilliant book called The Circadian Code, where he really gets into this. Just amazing. I wanted to get into a couple of things and hijack the discussion a little bit more. And this, I really want to jump into some of the genes, the roles of genes in quality sleep, the ones that are relative to sleep. And then, Roudy, you can jump in and talk about how light affects the particular hormones that we're talking about. So when we're talking about sleep, light exposure, Roudy had mentioned earlier the different hormones, these neurotransmitters that are important when it comes to sleep. Mentioned serotonin, mentioned melatonin, there's dopamine, different pathways here. So I'm going to specifically talk about serotonin and melatonin because oftentimes those are the highlighted ones for sleep. Now, serotonin deals with happiness and, different aspects of the way you are feeling. It works in mood regulation, sleep, appetite, all of these things. So how does it work? What genes are involved? So if you've done your DNA 360 reports, this would be in your mood and behavior section system. And you would be looking at your 5-HTT-LPR, which is actually, we're looking at the length of the gene, if it's long, if it's short. So you might have an LL, which is 2 longs. You might have an LS, a long and a short, or you might have an SS, short, which I happen to have. This works with serotonin transport, which we'll jump into in a second. Another one would be TPH2. This works in serotonin production. How well do you do that? Okay. Another one would be looking at BDNF. This is your brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That works very much into how does your body regulate the light coming in, neuroplasticity, how it impacts the survival of the neurons involved in serotonin signaling. And another one that is very important, I had mentioned the clock gene that you will find in your sleep reports, but also the MTHFR gene, as well as the entire methylation pathway. Methylation plays a very important role because this affects serotonin and melatonin synthesis through its influence on folate metabolism, and that's through the SAMe production. This is really important because I don't know if many of you knew, but serotonin gets converted into melatonin through different steps. We don't have to go through all the nerdy science about that, but it's important to know that there are certain aspects that are necessary for serotonin to be converted into melatonin. And one of the main ones is through the methylation pathway. So I want to hand this over to Roudy on the production, how does light and the kinds of light, when this happens in the production of serotonin, melatonin, and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So say you wake up first thing in the morning and you open the door, you go outside, you face east, and you're looking at this glorious view at dawn before the sunrise. And shortly after, what you start noticing is more colors of orange and red light amplifying in the sky, and then leading to more of the blue and the greens. So what happened is, as the sun is rising off the horizon, the high frequency colors like blue light, they have a very short wavelength, as well as UV. Those get filtered out by the atmosphere because the sun is low on the horizon. And as the sun is starting to rise, these short wavelength blue light and UV lights start appearing in the environment. And the combination between blue, yellow, and orange sends a signal to the central clock in the brain, telling us the day is starting. And that central clock signal to other hormones, like our adrenal gland, to start producing the hormone cortisol and adrenaline. And I like to describe this as nature's most effective cup of coffee. Like, many of us wake up in the morning and we're feeling groggy and dragging ourselves, we're feeling tired, and then we reach out for that cup of coffee because we want to feel more alert, more focused, and more energized. But nature has gifted us with this most effective way of actually increasing our energy level and producing those hormones and neurotransmitters that will create the space for us to be ready to kickstart the day. Now, cortisol is one of those hormones. And in this moment, when cortisol starts rising, the body sets like a cellular timer that determines when melatonin will be released later in the day. So the earlier we get the healthy rising tide of cortisol, the better, because that will mean that we will sync well with the sunset and we'll be able to fall asleep shortly after the sunset and get a restful night's sleep. Now, shortly after the UVA start arising in the environment, it's ultraviolet A. Okay, and UV is what provides the necessary energy to convert certain amino acids in the eye, like tryptophan, into serotonin and melatonin. And as you mentioned, Lara, serotonin is this hormone that allows us to feel this inner satisfaction and happiness. We instantly feel that we are happy and satisfied with what we have in life. To me, I connect that to a state of gratitude. And when I go and watch the sunrise in this glorious moment, something magical happens. I feel a sense of deep gratitude and connection to not only myself, but to the whole world. And in this moment, you could get an insight that will change your life forever. So such is the power of like those neurotransmitters that we may take for granted, but it's those neurotransmitters represent the effect of our relationship with Mother Nature. And eventually serotonin will convert into melatonin later at night. Now, how does that happen? Say you're outside, you're walking in the park, the sun is setting. And as the sun is setting, again, light is information. It's subconsciously signaling to your body, brain, and nervous system that the day is ending. And that literally activates our inner pharmacy so that we can stop secreting or releasing the melatonin that we've produced first thing in the morning and we've stored in the pineal gland. Now it's time to release it into the bloodstream. And melatonin is the highest antioxidant in nature. Not only is a very powerful sleep hormone, but it also acts as a signaling molecule to activate autophagy, apoptosis, mitophagy. Fancy words to meaning that the cells will actually activate the repair and rejuvenation system. Now, what do we need for this to happen? Naturally, if we are outside and we watch the sunset directly or indirectly, think about your ancestors. In that moment, your ancestors come back to the tribe and they're exposed only to fire or candlelight. In contrast, today, we come back to the tribe or to the box that we live in, and we turn on the artificial lights. And those are the alien sunlight. And there's one way most people go wrong about this, because they think of artificial light as the light that is coming from their phone or the light that is coming from their screen. Artificial light not only comes from your phone and your screen, it equally comes from the LED bulbs and the fluorescent lights that you may be using at your home, down the street, in the mall, in the restaurant, at a friend's house. And when we get exposed to that alien sunlight, it completely disrupts our rhythm because it tells the brain again that it's daytime, and it wipes out all the melatonin from our system, and it increases cortisol, the stress hormone. And this impacts our hunger hormone. It increases ghrelin, the hunger hormone, suppresses leptin, the satiety hormone. It also impacts our blood glucose. We have literally light in the eyes. It causes gluconeogenesis, the production of sugar from the liver without eating any food. So regardless of how much you try to control your diet and stop eating sugary things, being exposed to the wrong frequency of light at the wrong time is going to impact your blood glucose level. And your blood glucose impacts your emotional state and your mental state. So with all that being said, I think two main key takeaways there. One, light is information, and we want to make sure that we're getting the right information at the right time. And that is the information from nature. The second thing, very, very, very important key takeaway, it's not enough to filter out artificial light from screens and phones. You also need to be thinking, what kind of light is entering my eyes when I'm at home from my LED lights? Now, the third main big one where most people go wrong, circadian rhythm is about consistency. And the circadian clock is waiting for two main consistent signals. One, morning sunlight when you first wake up. Second, darkness after the sunset. So say that you've done this for 3 days, and I guarantee you're going to experience tremendous benefits. You're going to sleep better. You're going to wake up feeling more rested. You're going to regulate your appetite and mood. But what happened is, on the 4th day, you get invited to a friend's house, and you have no control over the lights in their house, and you're exposed to all these LED lights in their home. Only 1 hour of exposure to that LED light can throw off your rhythm 1 to 3 hours every single night. So that creates like a roller coaster in your circadian biology. And this is where most people go wrong. It's not enough that you, let's say, make a commitment, okay, I'm not going to use my computer 1 hour before bedtime. I've seen like a lot of people saying, I'm not using my computer 1 hour before bedtime. It's what I invite people to think about is after the sunset, what kind of light is entering your eyes, regardless of whether it's coming from your computer or from your phone or from your television or from your LED light. What we want to achieve is that consistent signaling, letting the brain know that it's 7 p.m. when it's actually 7 p.m.
So, and I love how you explained that and how all of that works. And I know it can seem a little overwhelming. And I see some things in the chat, going, having some questions about, well, how can I get certain types of light depending on, where a person lives, and another comment about, night people or people working on night shifts are screwed. Well, it certainly makes it more difficult because they are forcing themselves to be off the normal rhythm. And unfortunately, my son is one of them. He does work night shifts at the hospital. It makes it very difficult. And, unfortunately, it's this back and forth roller coaster ride with his weight because of it. Exactly what you were talking about, tending to want to eat more. But even if you are not eating as much, your body is creating that sugar and your hormones, everything is off cycle. And it is really difficult. And I tell you, I have to give massive kudos to those people who choose to do shift work. It's not easy. But let's talk about some things that can be done. How can we fix these things? And by the way, for our audience, if you have questions, please put them in the question and answer. We're actually going to be going through those. So start populating those. Any questions you have, anything for either myself, Roudy, both of us, please put your questions in the Q&A box. So let's look back at what can we do. So specifically, I want to address this question that Mary had. Can I get the morning light from an infrared red light? She lives in Seattle. Now, I'm going to let you take that question.
Yes, absolutely. So even though you live in Seattle, if you were to go outside with a light meter and take a measurement of the frequencies of light during the darkest winter day, what you're going to see is that you're still getting that full spectrum ranging from ultraviolet light all the way up to infrared light. Okay, so the sunlight emits all the colors that we see in the rainbow, ranging from the blue light all the way up to the red light. And there's the invisible frequencies of UVA, UVB, and infrared light. Now, all of this package controls our biology, and every one of those frequencies is designed to activate different enzymes that not only makes us a lot better at digesting food, but also it completely makes the absorption of nutrients into our bloodstream more effortless and more easy. So when you are in Seattle and you choose to stay inside and only expose yourself to that infrared light from your device, you're cutting yourself off all the different other frequencies that are absolutely essential to your biology. So instead, what I would do is I will still go outside and take as much natural light as possible, even when it's very cloudy and overcast. And when you come back to your office or to your home, you could supplement with your infrared device. And in this case, you're still getting that full spectrum light, and you're using that device as a supplement to add to your light exposure rather than replacing sunlight.
So what about, I see someone here, they live in Alaska. I mean, that's tough because especially during the winter, there's just maybe a few hours of sunlight. I mean, you talk about going to extremes with the circadian rhythm, the regular rhythm of light and dark. I know that I've actually had a client who lived up there, and using one of those full spectrum light boxes, where actually is providing you all of the frequencies, the light frequencies that natural sunlight provides can help to regulate that normal rhythm, exposing yourself, in size during the day, in the winter. That is very helpful. So you just kind of have to work with what you have. Do you have any other ideas for someone who lives in Alaska in that situation?
Yeah, it's very tricky. If you're living in Alaska, your whole physiology and metabolism will shift from relying on light signaling to relying on temperature signaling. So if I was to be living in Alaska and I wake up first thing in the morning and it's completely dark and I want to wake myself up, what I would do is I will do a cold plunge. And that will actually raise my core body temperature up. And that becomes the signaling for starting the day. And some other effective ways to wake yourself up and increase your alertness and focus first thing in the morning and reset your circadian clock is via exercising or also eating a big meal, like eating breakfast. But one of my favorite ways, because I also lived in Canada up north, and the sun used to rise around 9 a.m. and set around 3 p.m. And I've stayed committed to live in harmony with that cycle. However, I still nevertheless woke up way earlier than the sunrise. And the way I was getting the awakening response and attuning my circadian rhythm is by using a cold exposure and exercise first thing in the morning.
So speaking about getting out first thing in the morning, how much time do you feel is best to expose your face, your body, your eyes to natural sunlight?
Yeah, that's a great question. So think of it as different phases and different windows of times that provide you with different benefits. The first window is as the sun is rising and you're getting that signaling that the day is starting. And usually I like to be outside for at least 15 minutes as the sun is rising. And depending on your geographical location and the time of the season, UVA light will start appearing about an hour to an hour and a half after the sunrise. So say the sun is rising at 7, UVA may appear at 8:30 a.m. And that's another very important window of time to be outside and to expose your eyes to at least 10 to 15 minutes as well. Now, assuming that it's summertime where you are and that there is UVB, because UVB doesn't appear in all seasons, and that will really depend on your geographical location. So for people who live up north, there's a time in the year when UVB doesn't appear. And UVB is actually what allow you to make vitamin D. So it's absolutely essential that when you're exposing yourself to UVB, that you expose as much of your skin and yourself as possible so that you can maximize that vitamin D production. And of course, there are ways to do it safely, and it will all depend on where you live, what's the type of your skin, how much melanin you've built, whether you've built your solar callus or not. All of these variables will depend on how long and how you could expose yourself to UVB light.
Actually, it's really interesting. You're saying about, exposing yourself to at least 15 minutes, within that first hour of the sun rising, sunset. And this reminds me of a practice called sun gazing. Now, which I have done. For the audience, sun gazing is a practice of looking directly at the sun, typically during sunrise or sunset when the rays are at their least intensity. And the idea behind this is that, like Roudy and I have been talking about, the sun is a source of light and energy that can positively affect the body and mind when viewed in moderation and at safe times of the day. Obviously, we do not want anybody going out in the middle of the day, staring up at the sun, and damaging their eyes. So timing is really important. And this is done only during that first hour after sunrise or the last hour before sunset. Beginners, if you are interested in looking into this, you would start with just a few seconds and gradually build up to a little bit longer, maybe a minute or two over time, but always done in short increments to avoid eye damage. Another thing that you could do, I love to tell my clients to stack the benefits of what they're doing. So if you're going outside, exposing yourself to the sun, no matter what time of day, I'm not talking about just sun gazing, but going outside, just getting some sun on your face. Also going outside barefoot while you're doing it, ground yourself. And then also do some deep breathing exercises, activate that vagal tone, that parasympathetic nervous system, just to get yourself centered for the day, increase your BDNF, which sun does. And for those of you who have dysregulated BDNF, so this would be if you have a variant in your presentation, this is something that can help to upregulate that BDNF. Actually, heat upregulates, and the back and forth, what Roudy was talking about, cold exposure, going back and forth, also helps to hormetically stress the body in a beneficial way, and also helps to upregulate that BDNF. So stack the benefits of what you're doing. So that's, a wonderful thing. But just to wrap up, backing to the sun gazing aspect, this really is a matter of stimulating the pineal gland, often called the third eye, producing hormones like melatonin for sleep, serotonin for mood, working for better mental clarity, inner peace, reduce stress, things that we've been talking about. So, this is just another aspect. Well, I appreciate that insight. And Roudy, I really appreciate you being here, sharing your brilliance, knowledge, wisdom, just amazing. Again, how much I love you, how much I love your products. They are absolutely wonderful. And, throwing it out there, for my son, I had mentioned earlier, I got him a set, and he wears them at the hospital. With those very bright lights, with the fact that he's, working night shifts, but he has noticed a huge difference in eye strain, that it's lessened the eye strain. He feels better. So, it's helpful even for those people who have chosen to work night shifts, swing shifts, working outside of their natural circadian rhythm. They are a godsend, and as are you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. For our audience, thank you. We would not be here if it weren't for you. And I hope you are walking away today with some great pearls of information, some new knowledge, and maybe we can help to move that needle that we had in the poll in the beginning, and have more of you sleeping better and be more aware of light and the information and health that it provides you. So thank you. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Until next time, enjoy.